You can hit the tab button to go into the edit mode to change the scale, and that's the next thing we're going to cover. If you hit tab now, actually go ahead and go down here and change this back to transformation, the little arrow that's right here. If you accidentally click the one to the left of it, just click it again and it'll bring it right back. Hit the tab button. Now everything is turned orange. Okay, a couple things to note here. There are different ways to edit in the edit mode. One of which is to do what they call, what I refer to as just a point manipulation. That is to say, you're hitting the point where all of these little vertexes or edges or whatever all kind of meet on those planes. So I can click that one, and then I can move it by hand. This is a little bit more sloppy. As you notice, the numbers aren't quite squared off, and it's going to be really difficult to get it on grid. When you're exporting, you're going to have to really play with the export sizes and all that stuff. So I typically try to just kind of eyeball it and then round it off. In this case, I would say that's 1 1/4, and that's going to be pretty close to where I want it to be. And then we'll just go ahead, and this is something else you can do. You can subtract different numbers, or add or multiply, divide. You can do a lot of different math things. As an example, we're going to subtract 0.125. You'll notice that actually technically added to it, and that's because it was negative, so plus 0.125, and then we'll do the same thing again. And the reason I did that is just because I know that's going to make a nice even 45-degree angle. You can kind of see that here from here to here. You can also go into edge mode. That's what this little arrow here represents, and click, and then you'll be able to drag them back and forth. You'll notice that the center point of this edge on the X isn't quite exactly -1, so we're just going to change that and just put that about middle of where it should be for that. And we're going to come here and we're just going to hit a 0, and that's going to move it way back, way back there. But that's how you can manipulate stuff there. The other one you can do is you can hit the face edge, and this is another way to size things up. Coming back around to what we were talking about before, where you can change scale. You can actually come in here and you can change the size by dragging these faces. The little black dot represents the center of that face, which is what this median or location, same thing, is at. So then I can just drag it up and down. And you can also, if you notice, this is technically on the z-axis, and we're just trying to go up or down, so we're going to go 3.5. You can also move them forwards or back, like on the green axis, which is your y. So we're going to go 1 over, and it kind of tilts it and gives it that little off shape. And we're just going to go with -2 down here on the bottom, just because we can. -2, and that just kind of makes it more of a slanted face thing. And now you've got this really weird, odd-shaped piece for whatever it is you're trying to make. But again, that's just going over the point that you can pretty much do whatever you want and sculpt in all kinds of different powerful directions. And if we want, we can you can reset everything. It gets a little tricky though. The best way to do that is just to delete it if you get too far in and you've edited this. You know, it can take some time, especially if you're trying to remember where each one of those points was. We'll just go, whoop, that's not what we wanted. We'll just go -1, -1, now they're even. Now if you remember right, we were in these points were a little off. So on the x-axis we have to go back to -1. That should put it about where it was. Because that's where these others were -1. And then if we go back over to the face mode, if you remember right, we changed this a little bit here, going back that way, so we were about a -1. That should put it about square. And we'll come down here and we'll put this back at -1 on the Z. Back at 1, I'm sorry. Nope, 0. There we go. And then you can come up here and you can always move it over a little bit. So it was probably actually -2. Now we're back to square, and that's just a couple different ways you can go through and edit stuff. You have other stuff you can do here too. I haven't really got into them very much on exactly what to do there. This is where you can really mess with the 3D cursor, as you can see here. And I believe if you hit the tab key, yeah, there's your 3D cursor. So if you always want it dead middle rather than having to sit there and fuss with it, you can do it there. If you want to put a new cube in at, let's see here, where was that? This face was at, and if we go up here and we hit global, That's where this point is in the space of everything rather than just local to where that center point is, which is over here somewhere on the 0. You'll notice this is about -2 by about 3.5, and then it's over by about 1. So we're going to go back into edit mode. And I did do something here. If you guys didn't catch that, the little orange dot is now off. I kind of made a mistake. If you move after selecting all of the edges, points, or faces any which way, you're going to end up putting it off centered from where the center is. So I'm just going to do like that after hitting all the faces, and that'll put me back with this back into 0. The pivot point for the unit can be manipulated in that manner, the pivot or 0 point. That will also change, and I'll show you how that works. Change the points where the faces are. If you notice now, one way you can select all faces really quick rather than having to go through here and select all of them one at a time is to hit the A key. If you hit it once, it'll deselect. You hit it a second time, it'll go ahead and select all of them. We're just going to 0 that out a little bit. There we go. And then the numbers are a little weird, rounded off, and that's just because where we went in and did that manual manipulation. So things have changed out a little bit. But you can see where the point is. So if I go like this, and we're just going to put this at a 1 by 1 by 1. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to kind of set this off so that it's as close as we can get it to being in this corner. So now you'll notice I've been able to kind of set this closer to the corner. And if this cube was the standard size and scale and all that, which we're going to go ahead and set all that back to 0. Now, if you remember right, I said you can hit the Alt key and then the Shift key, and that'll keep it locked. The camera's locked. What I did there was hold the Alt again and locked it on the top point of view so I can kind of eyeball where I need to be here. And you'll notice now that I've kind of manipulated this and moved stuff around now, it's not quite perfectly centered. We don't want that for the purposes of the tutorial anymore. So just go ahead, close out Blender if you want to continue along exactly, and then reopen it. Click anywhere in gray space. Now we're back where we were. You can shift click and select both, and then hit the delete if you want just to get rid of them. So now we're back with our basic cube and everything set. Again, you can hit the N key. That'll open this menu back up. Now you have all the sizes and scales and all that back. Anyway, I wanted to show you really in detail how that little center point really will help. And I'm going to move that 3D cursor 50 by 50 by 50, and you can quickly bring it back into the camera's viewpoint if you want, just by right-clicking anywhere. I just did that so it's out of my way for now. One thing to also note, when you first open this up, you're automatically going to have a material applied. That material, when it imports, is going to be assigned only to this cube. If I drop in another, we're just going to do I didn't mean to do that. We're going to do an icosphere, which was dropped in at 50 by 50 by 50 because of where I put it, so Control Z will undo that. We're going to go by 0, 0, 0. If I drop in another icosphere, you'll notice there's all kinds of subdivisions and that sort of thing. As soon as I move it, it's going to get rid of all that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the cursor a little off so you can actually see the icosphere when I drop it in. There's the icosphere. You can do the subdivisions. Don't go too crazy with this. I'm only going to go up by 1. You can see how many more faces, how much, whatever English you want to use, how there's more faces all of a sudden. I'm just going to do 1 subdivision. So there you go. That's how that's going to look with just 1. And we're just going to leave it on 1 to keep it a little more simple. You can also make it a little bit bigger. Like that's twice its size, or you can make it smaller. Make it a little bit smaller. We're going to go 0.5, so now you've got a small one, and we're going to go back to 2 subdivisions. So there you go. That's what it usually would look like. However, once you move it, it's going to go away. The same thing is true for all of them. The cylinder is where this gets really tricky. If you wanted to put 6 sides on it, Once you place it, you'll want to put the 6 sides on it right away so you can make, like, say, a hex